All right. One of the things that I noticed yesterday, and I don't know if it was unique to this period or if it was just all morning, but a lot of people didn't quite understand what I meant by annotate. Prove that you've read it, okay? What do you look for in a poem? What do you look for? Anything that you're reading, how do you even note what's going on, okay? And so a couple of the things that I wanted you guys to get is I wanted to kind of give you a little system. So on this sheet of paper, this poem here, where you've got space, and I know you've got a lot of space, I want you to write these 4 things that you can look for that'll kind of give you a guide as to what.
Even if you were like bad, like or good, you still died. Like, because there are people that were like attacking other people and doing crimes to get food to survive, but then there were people that weren't, and they actually still all died.
And they still all died. So it didn't matter if you were good or evil, you still died. Okay. This here, if you guys looked, when I first read this poem, I'll have to tell you, it was very cryptic for me. I was like, what the heck is this about? I really had to go back through and kind of, okay, it's really dark and depressing, but why? And so I asked myself a question. Do you see? Questions are really, really good here. What if this whole thing was metaphoric? What if blackness was comparing to something? What if darkness or the lack of a sun was comparing? Okay, it could be society. It could, when you get done looking at some of my notes, let's see if we can answer that question, okay? So here, key word here, the very first line, I had a dream which was not all a dream. That kind of gives you a clue that, maybe this isn't, maybe it's something he's basing. What did you say?
Hinting at reality.
Yeah, he's like basing it in reality, but it's not completely true. So it's more, actually, as you go through it again, it's a what if question. It's like he's asking, what if the whole world was like this? What would human beings do? And then he lines it all out. And he has kind of a depressing view of how human beings would be, doesn't he?
It's exactly how it would be.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Very destructive.
We are very destructive, that's true. Although as long as God is here, I think there will be good. But once God withdraws his hand, I think it would look very much like this. Because that's what human beings will do when they don't have any of their common grace or anything. Now, when I first started reading it, oftentimes I will do a key word. And you see my key word here is blackness. It's just kind of a summary of the feeling that I was getting from this opening paragraph. The other thing is I kind of looked for chunks, for sections. The red is kind of my second or third or fourth reading. It was done later. So the blue is my first read. The red is my later reads. I just don't remember which one. But I thought this was interesting when it said, morn came and went and came, so it was a couple of days, and men forgot their passions in the dread of this their desolation. I noticed later that evil starts immediately, okay? But I didn't notice that right away because I'm still doing a cold read. But here I did notice immediately was that the thrones, the palaces, the huts, there's this contrast between poor and rich, and yet the habitations of all things that dwell are burnt. And so it's kind of like there's no position left. That was my first thought. Okay, now when I read it again, I realized that not only is it chaos and ruin, but men are now equal. There's no status because it's been erased by destruction. We are all evil. There's no one above anybody else. Do you see how I could pull that out of that just because of the representation of rich and poor, and it's all destroyed in a kind of even sweep. Okay, and here it says, men were gathered round their blazing homes to look once more into each other's face. Happy were those who dwelt within the eye of the volcanoes. And so a fearful hope, forests were set on fire. This is just what came to mind. But when I reread it, death with light, I'm not quite sure what I meant by that or what I was thinking of. So it's kind of, sometimes a thought will go through your head and it doesn't really apply the next time around because you got more out of it a different way. The forests were set on fire, they fell and faded, and the crackling trunks extinguished with a crash, and all was black. And again, I was asking the question if this was metaphoric, so it's almost like the forests were kind of symbolic of people's hope, and once they were destroyed, all hope was destroyed because there was nothing left. Then, things like unearthly means unnatural. Some lay down and hid their eyes and wept. Laying down is a sign of giving up. And so you could see the despair that they had. Okay, and then this one, didn't this kind of creep you out? Some did rest their chins on their clenched hands and smiled. In the middle of all this despair, somebody's smiling. Okay, and for me, that just seems going insane. Because that doesn't seem natural. It seems like somebody is having a hard time coping with the horrible parts of the world. Okay. Hurried to and fro, fed their funeral piles. Later, I got the feeling of desperation in that. But down here, when I read it the first time, the evil and chaos of man who is lost without light. Can you see how salvation would be light and they're lost without it? So again, I was thinking metaphorically and how whenever you ask yourself a question, if you can carry it all the way through, then you know you're hitting something. Okay, even though he may have meant this as kind of a literal discussion about, or a philosophical discussion about what human nature would do in a situation like this, it can also become very metaphoric. Okay, and then I noticed the animals were the same as humans. They were disoriented by darkness. And to equate animals with humans, then what happens to our humanity? If we're the same as animals, what are we? Animals, yeah. We become animals. We kill for food. Look at that. A meal was bought with blood. That's on the next slide. For in an interpretation. Okay, so number one is going to be emotions. Okay, when you're looking for an interpretation, it's not just your reaction. You remember the poem's very dark. I think that was everybody knows how to do a reaction. Yeah, it feels very dark and depressing. Okay, but that's only your first initial reaction. That's kind of your gut level basic instinct, okay? But if you're going to go and interpret, you want the emotions of the author and you want the emotions of whoever the characters are, if there are characters. Okay, what are they thinking and feeling? Their emotions, that kind of thing. And then the next one is observations. Now, I don't know if you noticed on the list of essays I gave you earlier this week, but one of the types of essays is evaluate and judge. Well, the essay types tend to overlap a little bit, and what you're doing is analysis and interpretation, but you're still putting some kind of judgment in there, okay? So you're looking for anything in the human condition. Okay, remember, writers write about the human condition. Yeah, there's some writers that write about the plight of animals, but it's very few and far between. Most novels, most books, magazine articles, they're all about some aspect of the human condition. Just think about your ethics paper. Everything you wrote had to do with human nature. Everything. There was two sides because of human nature, okay? So, the human condition. You want to look at morality, sins and goodness. Okay, so good and evil are going to be things that you're going to look at. Okay, what's wrong with this picture? What's right with this picture? A good way to do this, to kind of figure out what it's saying is to paraphrase. You guys remember what paraphrase means? Paraphrase is different than summary. Does anybody know the difference between paraphrasing and summarizing? Okay, apparently not. All right, paraphrasing is rewording to clarify meaning. Okay? While summary and paraphrase are both in your own words, paraphrase is meant to reword in order to make it clearer, in order to, to clarify, to explore. And sometimes you have to give alternate synonyms for a couple of words, and then the meaning becomes clearer. And so then you can paraphrase it that way. So a paraphrase is kind of an exploration of, let's see, I can spell, I promise. Exploration of perspective and meaning. Someday they're going to get a stylist that can write much better and be easier to write neater. Or maybe I'll just get better at it. Okay. And then the last one is connections. Okay. And you can almost see how number 2 and 4 would overlap. Connections are connecting with anything you already know. I just get going here and I can't. Okay, so it could be your experiences. It could be what you know to be true. Okay, you know stealing is wrong, but you may never have had an experience with it. Okay, so it's kind of what you know to be true. And so you're weighing constantly what's going on in whatever you're reading against your experiences, against your own standards of morality. Okay, and again, what do we use for our standard of morality? How do we know our morality is true and right? What do we measure it against? That's constantly the question of our existence. How do we know something is true and right? Guys, the Christianese answer would be what? What are you always going to use to measure truth? The Bible, yeah. Yeah. Now, if you don't believe the Bible's true, then you're in trouble, because where do you get your standard for truth? A lot of people say their own conscience, their own, whatever, but then you get trapped with the relativism, which is happening in Arizona. You guys know that the gay, they wanted to make it so that gays could not sue bakeries, churches, photographers who did not want to, based on their religious convictions, who did not want to serve gay couples.
Yeah, because they shut those gay couple went to that bakery and they said that they weren't going to make that cake, and then they picketed in front of that bakery, and then they had to shut down because nobody wanted to go because it was too much a hassle.
Right. And they I think, to be honest, I think they purposely target these people to make a point, which is really unfair. I mean, and again, that's the example of relativism, because they believe one thing is right, and Christians believe one thing is right, and they're opposite. They can't both be right. Okay? And so if you're going to continue to believe that, homosexuality is inborn trait, like race, then you can see how they would believe that's right. But when you believe it's a sin, a behavior, do you see the core belief is at odds? And so we're going to have constant pain and suffering. One group is going to oppress the other group. And it's all based on a very core worldview. Okay? So that's, on that note here, then, when you're making observations and authors are always looking at the core of the human condition, authors cannot be trusted. Okay? You remember what Mark Twain said yesterday? Yeah, don't believe anything what was it?
Here.
Don't believe it.
Anything you hear and half of what you see. And while, that's not an absolute truth, it does observe the idea that you cannot take whatever you hear and see as absolute truth until it's evaluated against another standard, until you have the whole information. You guys remember that, hey Jake, you want to join us, please? Sit up. Until, let's see, now I forgot where I was. What was I just saying?
You were getting ready to tell us a story.
I know, and now I can't remember the story.
You just said Mark
Okay.
Twain's quote. That was the thing before.
Okay.
You guys remember when? That's what you said.
Yeah, darn it. I've lost it completely. It's all your fault, Jake. He's still falling asleep. Okay. Authors cannot be trusted to tell the absolute truth. And the idea, even Shakespeare, who's classic, we read every year because he makes accurate observations of human nature, he still can't be trusted completely. Okay, he's human. So we've got to make sure we're doing this. Okay, so now what I want you guys to do is remember your observations yesterday. Some of the things what was it that you said? What were some of the things that we said after the second draft reading? Go ahead and get you're going to need your chart thing out. So go ahead and get your chart thing out.
I don't think we discussed it after we read it.
Yeah.
We may not have, so yeah, that makes sense. We may not have discussed this.
Yeah, we didn't get that far.
Okay. So what I want you guys to do is stop for a minute, and I'm going to put this. Okay, what I would like to see now is what were some new things that you came up with from the poem yesterday? What were some stronger images? John?
Fire is like a reoccurring theme like throughout the whole thing.
Okay, fire's a reoccurring theme. That's absolutely true. Yeah, that's good. What would be significant behind that, do you think?
Fire could mean destruction. Destruction.
Yeah, destruction. Yeah, fire could mean destruction of, let's take it a little bit further. Destruction of what?
Us.
Okay, you leaped, but yeah, not just us, but what we represent, mankind. Go ahead.
The earth. Earth will.
Yeah, Earth in itself. Do you notice what gets destroyed? Everything. So nature, it destroys the forests, it destroys the buildings, it destroys everything. So what do buildings represent in mankind?
Civilization.
Civilization. And so that if that's burnt, then what is implied we will become?
Uncivilized.
Uncivilized, savage, cruel. Okay, it's always associated. When you wipe out civilization, we no longer have a moral standard. Okay? What'd you guys come up with? Taylor?
I don't know. I didn't really come up with anything new.
Nothing new?
No.
Okay. Zach, how about you? What about you guys?
On the second page, the third line down, it says all earth was but one thought and that was death. And I just thought like that sentence kind of sums up the whole poem.
Okay, it's, which one it was?
The third line down on the second page.
All earth was but one thought, and that was death. And that summarized the poem how?
Like death is like the darkness. Like
Okay.
Earth and like dying.
So death all the way through, and it's kind of just unified in death. Okay, good. Because I want you to see what else could be drawn out of this, and I would encourage slides. Jake, are we boring you, dear? Are we boring you? Okay. Now, sate was actually a word, the way it was worded in here, I thought sate was being used as a noun. And I happen to know to sate means to satisfy, and it's a verb. Okay, this is where knowledge of your parts of speech come in real handy, because that was really confusing for me. So I actually read it aloud again, and it said, a meal was bought with blood, and each sate sullenly apart, gorging himself in gloom. So each was the subject. Each person sates his own hunger. He satisfies his own hunger. Okay, so again, it's this image of selfishness and things like that. Okay, no love was left. Again, immediately, the blue was my first read, and so no good left in the world. And then I think what Kylie said, all earth was but one thought, and that was death. And she noticed a unified, this is kind of a unified theme of the whole poem. It's all about despair. Okay? Now, do you see what I'm pulling out of the poem with not only connections to my own life, but connections to morality, connections to what's wrong and right, connections to human nature, what we understand about human nature? Does that make sense? I'm not going to go line by line. I think this was good. This was enough. So what I want to do right now is hand you some materials for your much ado essays, and then I want to model how to do that. Okay. I want you guys to go ahead and find the spot. See, it's a small box in the middle where you can put your thesis statement. So for right now, right this minute, I want you guys to look at your thesis, see if you can improve on it while you're rewriting it. If not, you can improve on it later, okay, if you get, if you're drawing a blank. But just fill it in right now. Okay, for argument's sake, I'm using Romeo and Juliet, because I think most of you are familiar with the story. If you can't, how many people have read it? Actually read it. Okay, so we only got like 3 or 4 people. All right. The basic tenet of the story is that they meet, marry, and kill themselves in 5 days. Okay, very short, fast and furious play. The idea is that both their houses, the Montagues and the Capulets, are at war. Okay, so think about gang warfare, where it's a feud because it's kind of like you kill one of theirs, they kill one of yours, you kill one of theirs, they kill one of yours. And it's back and forth. It's this feud. It's a never-ending getting revenge constantly on the opposite house. And so that provides the backdrop for this play, for this story, and it makes, and then Romeo and Juliet are from the two sides. I mean, if you've seen Romeo and Juliet, have you guys seen it? Romeo and Juliet? It was a cute movie. It's based on Romeo and Juliet, but it's, garden gnomes, and yeah, it's really kind of funny and cute, but it plays on the idea that there's two houses that are at war and their children are in love with each other. And so here at the end, Romeo and Juliet, through a series of circumstances, find themselves in two opposite cities, and through another series of kind of miscommunication and stuff, Juliet is only pretending to be dead. Romeo thinks she's dead, goes in there, kills himself. She wakes up, realizes he's dead, and kills herself because she can't live without him. And he couldn't live without her. So that's kind of the basic tragedy. Yes, teenagers. Okay, so my prompt is, who is responsible for the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet? Friar Lawrence, he's the one who married them. The two lovers themselves. How about their parents? Fate. Fate is that kind of unseen force that supposedly controls everybody's destiny. Do a number of people share the blame? To what extent can these people be held responsible for the deaths of Romeo and Juliet? Okay, so I've got some choices here, and when I'm looking at the prompt, I'm looking at what sides I could take, okay? So, they list Friar Lawrence as one possible person, the lovers themselves, their parents, okay? Do a number of people. Now, if a number of people share the blame, I have an option. I can blame several people. I don't have to pick one. And you know what I do to you guys. I always make you pick one because I want you to concentrate on one side. But this one's actually giving me an option of several, which I like in this particular case because how they work together, the several people, kind of contributes mostly to the tragedy, okay? Friar Lawrence, just so you know, he married them together on the hope that it would unite the families. That's why he did that. So I can't blame him because his intentions, he was wise, that would have been good. But I think other things interfered with that good intention. So I can't blame him. I don't believe in fate. Okay, fate is not some, see where I'm bringing my own reality into it. So I don't think that that's realistic. Fate is this, it's not this unfeeling source that just dooms people to their death. While God has control, he also gives us free choice. And so I believe it's in that free choice where we screw up our own lives. And so then to what extent can these people be held responsible? Okay, so now you guys have already filled in your, and here's mine. And of course, I can't seem to stretch it out or anything, but we'll do it. All right. When we look at step 1, you want to look at your hook, and you want to look at your, you want this short summary can often be your transition, okay? So you'd put your hook here, and so I might put something like, let's see, what could I put for a hook? I could make a general statement like hatred is a powerful force. And can be very destructive. Okay. Now, do you see how that could open up my paper? You can already see how it connects with my thesis, right? Because Montagues and Capulets hate each other. So then when I do my summary statement, it's this transition between the hook and my thesis. So I might say something in the play, Romeo and Juliet, and you got to do the whole thing. Okay, and I can't seem to get my Y's to not have extra lines. Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. I'm going to abbreviate because I'm running out of room here. Two families practice an intense amount of hate for each other. Now, is 3 sentences enough for an introduction? No, not at your grade level. I might accept that from my freshmen, but not from seniors. So you would need to kind of keep developing this a little bit. Two families practice an intense amount of hatred, resulting in their children's death. And then I might say, it is this kind of hatred. Get this out of my way. This kind of hatred is evil. Now I kind of stumped myself, didn't I? Got any ideas?
Make a question.
Yeah. Is evil and only causes more evil. Okay, I'm not liking this, but it's a rough draft. Okay? So there we go. And then, while many individuals can claim responsibility in the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet, the greatest blame can be laid at the feet of the feud and Romeo and Juliet themselves. So now, if I were to read this together, hatred is a powerful force and can be very destructive. In the play Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare, two families practice an intense amount of hatred, resulting in their children's death. This kind of hatred is evil and only causes more evil. While many individuals can claim responsibility, in the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet, the greatest blame can be laid at the feet of the feud and Romeo and Juliet themselves. Okay, it semi-flows. Do you see some of the problems with it, though? What are some of the problems with it?
The last for the thesis is like really awkward.
It is. It's like I need another transition, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would put...
It doesn't like flow from that into the thesis.
Yes. It lacks flow. Good. Yeah. It lacks flow. It's not what? Cogent. Exactly. It's not cogent. It's very important that you guys can see that even I, after 20 years of teaching English, will still have rough drafts. Okay? It's really important that you get out of that idea that you write a perfect first draft. You'll always go back. Do you know how many different ways and different times I rewrote that essay, that ethics paper? Every single paragraph got rewritten at least 3 or 4 times. At least. Okay? Some more than others. But it is that process. You can get to an A paper with a D paper because you can revise, you can make it better, that kind of thing. Okay? So I want to encourage you guys to make sure you're doing your revisions. Yes?
What time is our paper due on Friday? Like,
I am going to make it due Friday night at midnight, just like I did the ethics paper.
Yay.
Yeah, that worked out very well, and so I'm quite pleased with that. But I will work it that way. Okay, now.
Wait, it's like tomorrow?
No. Next week.
Oh. Okay.
Friday, March 7th. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
I was like,
Next week. No, I would not do that. What I want to do actually is get you guys to write this this organizer and bring it to me Monday. And then I want to take them home and give you some feedback on them, okay? Hopefully I can get them all done in like 24 hours. We'll see. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do, okay, yeah, my intro's rough, big deal. I can go back and change it. That's what an organizer is for, just to get my thoughts down. Okay, now my reason, my topic sentence here are my reasons for believing my opinion is correct. Okay, so I need to come up with 3 reasons why my particular opinion is correct. Okay, so the first thing I say in my thesis is that the feud itself can be to blame. Okay, now I've only done 2 things here. So my thesis kind of lends itself only to 2 reasons. And if that's the way your essay works, that's fine, okay? I will be able to tell if you're being chintzy and not exploring all the options, okay? I wrote most of those prompts, and so I will be able to tell that you're missing something, Okay, so explore it fully, but then I will also be able to tell that there's just no other place to go but 2 reasons. Does that make sense? I can be fair about this, I really can. So I want you guys to really explore it, take it seriously, and then if it really is only 2 reasons, so be it. Just don't be lazy, okay? That's, you know. Okay, so one of the reasons then I can say the feud, the fighting between the families is mostly to blame. Okay? That's my reason why the feud can be held responsible. Okay? And then the evidence, I'm going to talk about the examples where, let me see if I can. Okay, right now my evidence is not going to be a quote because I can't think of a quote right off the top of my head. But I'm going to have a quote that is the fighting. I, me, what fray is here? Yet tell me not. Romeo's upset. I want the quote that Romeo is upset with the feud. So I'm writing myself a note. Okay. The big thing, though, is that I want you guys to understand, I want you to write out the quote. Okay? I want the full quote. Copied, word for word quote. Okay? But in the interest of time, okay, I want to be able to show you what the warrant means, what the warrant will look like. That's the hard part. The warrant is kind of a call, why do I think that I'm right? Okay? I'm going to say that, I'm going to explain things like families are a powerful force. I'm going to say they are the ones that set the moral code, set the morality of their children. And the authority. And have authority. Okay. And so ultimately what I want to prove, and I don't like this, it's very rough, but ultimately what I want to prove, and I'm just going to write down some notes for myself so that I can go back and clean it up. But families pressure their children. I don't know what it is about a stylus that makes me spell wrong. So Romeo and Juliet ultimately had to hide their love and so it led to Capulet wanting his daughter to marry Paris when she was already married to Romeo, but she couldn't tell Juliet about, but Juliet couldn't tell him about her marriage to Romeo, and so he was pressuring her to get married to Paris, and so she was desperate, had to hide their marriage, and it made them desperate. Okay? So do you see how my warrant isn't necessarily just one sentence? It's a train of thought that traces how this all happened and where am I going to put the blame and all that kind of stuff. Is that starting to make sense? Okay. All right. So now what I'd like you guys to do is start your own. Okay. Start thinking about what kind of reasons for your thesis. How is it true? Okay? See how you can divide it up.